Namaskar and a very warm welcome to everybody who have joined us on this 12th day of the 15-day lecture series, which is a part of the MyBHARAT campaign that Disha Bharat has been taking forward. I am Smriti Khare, a program coordinator at Disha Bharat, and here we are at the 12th day. The National Education Policy 2020 has become a ray of hope towards a brighter future for Bharat by Indianizing the education system. Disha Bharat has been conducting some very interesting programs, and one of which has been a one-year-long online deliberations by the name Vikasana. And this program was devised to bring the vision of national education policy to action in universities across the country. Disha Bharat also proposes to conduct faculty development programs to educate the educators about the aspects of NEPs, challenges in implementing, and the way forward. As a part of today's lecture, we have with us Madam Santishree Dhulipudi Pandit. Dr. Santishree Pandit is an internationally reputed academician and the current Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. Madam is the first woman to hold this office. She was previously serving as Professor of Political Science at Savitribai Phule, Pune University. She was appointed as 13th Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University by Ministry of Education. Dr. Pandit did her BA and MA from Presidency College, Chennai, and completed MPhil and PhD in International Relations from School of International Studies at JNU. Madam has also received a diploma in social work from California State University and postgraduate diploma in peace and conflict studies from Uppsala University. Madam, we are all elated to have you here and very excited to listen to your wise words on the topic, education and vision for 2047. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much. And sabko mera namaskar. Good evening to all of you. Ellarkum vanakkam. Andaru mahanubhavulki na shatakoti vandanalu, namaskaralu. Ellarku namaskara. Sagada manyavaranna maji namaskar. I started in so many languages is just to show the richness of the Indian languages that we have. Recently, I was at Unmesh, and I was so happy that the Ministry of Culture was celebrating 103 languages, including tribal languages of India. So diversity is something that I would stress later in my lecture. Let me at the outset thank Disha Bharati for inviting me to give a lecture on education in 2047 and a vision for 2047. All of you know that 2014 brought in a paradigm shift. Why do I say it is? For the first time, we have a period where we are trying to reassess and also look at our entire process as a civilization state as well as post-independence. I would rather say that India is a civilization state. We did not begin at 1947. We have a very strong 5,000-year-old history, and this has been continuous. And there are changes. Nobody is saying it's very sacred. So we are at the Amrit, we are entering the Amrit Kal, and this is the 75th year of, we have celebrated 75 years, and there's a 76th year. So according to me, if you see, since independence, it is important that we underline the number of milestones that have taken place. But please remember, education is a sector that we have the present government giving extraordinary importance, especially by the visionary document that it has brought out called the National Education Policy 2020. And this is the policy that I would like to first touch of what is the uniqueness that this policy comes literally 34 years after the previous policy. And one has to understand that this policy will not be the last. There will be several policies, but as an educationist myself, I believe that the curriculum should be always, reformed or changed or reviewed at least every 10 years. And it is necessary because of modern invention, new systems of knowledge. Now let us look into the importance. What is NEP doing? First is, it is bringing in the incorporation of the Indic identity into education. What do we, or Bharatiya Parampara, as you would call it in Hindi. And if you see clearly, what do we mean by the Bharatiya Parampara? See, as a civilization, it is very important that we are a civilization that has to, in a way, bring out its history and facts before we are able to go ahead. See, history means facts are sacred, interpretations can vary. But what we have seen is, to a large extent, interpretations have become sacred and facts vary, which is something that has to be corrected. Now, when I'm talking about, I think the most important challenge for academicians, students, research scholars, policymakers, because education will determine whether we'll become a superpower, the Vishwa Guru, because knowledge is power. And also the reverse, power is knowledge. So knowledge, we are in a knowledge society. So those who go ahead in it are the ones who will become Vishwa Guru. So it is extremely important that in India, we have to look at how we are going to do this. And the first thing I would believe is narrative building and the building of an ecosystem. This is extraordinarily important because as academicians, intellectuals, you can win political power, and that is always temporary. What sustains a particular narrative is the intellectual narratives that are brought about by academicians, students, and research scholars. And here I see the NEP bringing in the concept of interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity, which is very, very important. As most of you know, that universities, education is on the concurrent list, meaning if there is a contradiction between a state and a central law, the central law will prevail. So education, and this came in by the 42nd Amendment to the Indian Constitution. So if we remember, one important thing that NEP 2020 is bringing in is what we would say this holistic nature, meaning they are saying that all knowledge has to be seen holistically. Don't separate it into compartments of science, technology, or social sciences, humanities, languages. When we study, like in the ancient in Gurukul system, all knowledge was studied together. It was interconnected. There were linkages to it. Okay, let me give you a very good example. We have no Indian educated, scientist won a Nobel Prize after 1947. Those who won it were who studied in Vedic or in Indian system of mathematics. Let's take C.V. Raman or Subramaniam Chandrasekhar, the two winners of the Physics Nobel Prize, and the mathematical genius of Srinivasa Ramanujan. Most of you should know that he failed his 12th standard and he failed in English. But his mathematics, he was a genius that even Professor Hardy of Cambridge would say, asked him, how do you write such formulas that even the greatest of great mathematicians are unable to solve? He said, Goddess Bhagavati comes at night and writes it on my tongue. So here we see that we are a civilization that sees knowledge as sacred, and we are a knowledge-seeking civilization. And here I would also like to add one more thing, that we are the only feminist civilization in the world. And this is a value that we have to state. Feminism didn't begin after Simone de Beauvoir or after Marxism came in. We are the only civilization that believes in Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, meaning who comes first? The mother. And then we also have in Indira's cabinet, the most powerful portfolios, that of knowledge is with Saraswati, and that of wealth or prosperity is with Mahalakshmi, and power with Durga or goddess Parvati. So please remember, this is a value that we need to bring out. See, one important thing that NEP is putting a challenge between all of us in the next 25 years is how are we going to convert tradition with modernity? How are we going to connect change with continuity, realm with region, and inclusion with innovation? Meaning, we have to include every Indian student or everybody who should be given the opportunity to have access and availability of education. And education even in their mother tongue. And we know that India is extraordinarily rich in languages with their own scripts. And as most of you know, the Prime Minister has always been stating that Tamil is the oldest language in the world. And it is very important that we have the oldest language, and we should be very, very proud of that. So you have 22 languages that are accepted as national languages, and there are several tribal and other languages and dialects. So we have to bring in multilingualism. Is extraordinarily important, because we have to not only learn our own languages, but we also have to learn the international language, because we have to even talk to the world. Now, science and technology is important when scientists or young people become innovative, and Atmanirbhar Bharat, entrepreneurship. All of us don't look only for government jobs. This is another aspect that has come in, because if India has to move from a 5 trillion economy to a 10 trillion economy and the third largest economy in the world, we will need young entrepreneurs, innovators, but at the same time, we will also need people who will build narratives. See, no country, including the United States of America, on its way to become a major power, had its social scientists, humanities, and literatures build narratives on American values. In the same way, how are we going to build on Bharatiya values or Indic values is extraordinarily important. And what is the uniqueness of this great civilization? Please remember, only 2 civilization states have entered the 4th industrial revolution, and they are China and India. And that means we have had continuity with change. Many civilizations have disappeared, but whereas the Hindu civilization or the Indian civilization has still been alive and strong. Now we will look at what would be the issues that may. So narrative building, according to me, is very important. One, I've told you, how do we interpret our civilization? Feminist civilization, nature-centric, unlike the Western Abrahamic religions, which are man-centric. If you see, in the Indic civilization, there usually, even as I told you in Indira's cabinet, the feminine and the masculine are in harmony. We believe in balance, Ardhanarishwar. We don't believe they are in opposition to each other. So this is a very important concept that we need to theorize and make it close with modernity. Develop most of our Indian languages and also textbooks for students, especially, I would say, textbooks that are of excellent quality. We should not produce anything and everything. And I think here the national curriculum framework is doing a good job, but it is a continuous job. You have to continuously keep updating yourselves. And this is extremely important. The other is education for all. See, we are a developing country. We do have problems of poverty. We are also in population wise, we are the largest country in the world. We have overtaken China. So there is a huge challenge before the government of India. You cannot privatize all education. I am for one who believes the state has to be a major player in providing not only primary, secondary, but also higher education. Because I don't say that everybody should come for higher education, but there are people who cannot afford the fees of private players. And in India, at least, we have not believed that education should become driven by the market. It cannot be commercialized. It's something that is not with our values. Knowledge for knowledge's sake is extraordinarily important. Here, I would say this education for all is another. And then the national education policy, as I've told you, is a massive shift from rote learning to experimental and skill-based learning. That meaning that just textbook learning is not the only thing. There are a lot of experimental learnings as well as skill-based. And we have to change our mindset towards this. And no longer, if you see, India should be able to bring in this important nature into our education system. We also have to be globally competitive. It is extraordinarily important. Just because we are going to teach in the different languages of such a rich, I think we are even more diverse than the entire European continent. I don't think any other country in the world celebrates cultural diversity the way we do. Ekam sat vipraha bahuda vadanti. We say that there are several paths and we accept that. We are not like the other faiths where they say my way or the highway. So if you see very carefully, we celebrate diversity and we believe, and when we are going to globally compete, it is extremely important that quality is maintained in most of our institutions. And as most of you know, Jawaharlal Nehru University is India's topmost university and also in the QS rankings, one of the few universities to break the 500 rank mark. And it is totally funded by the union government. It believes in the Prime Minister's motto of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Prayas, or Sabka Vishwas. Why am I saying that? The fee structure is just 10 and 20 rupees. We are providing the best education to the poorest of the poor. And this is totally supported by the union government. I would rather say that wherever you find very poor but brilliant students, they need to be given opportunities. With the development of IITs, IIMs, I think university systems also should increase. And because the 80% of the students go to non-science subjects. And it is very important that we do maintain quality there. The other is the issue of sustainability, climate change, which India is very committed to. And also, how do we follow environmentally, especially our concept of the Panchabhutas. We believe in a balance of the Panchabhutas. Is there any other, civilization that has brought in this concept? I think in environment, ecological studies, it is very important that we bring in the concept of the Panchabhutas. And I think we need research scholars and more theses on these areas. We also need what is called lifelong learning. Many of, like it is what the Vedic period, learning doesn't stop. I'm a student always. Every day I'm learning new things. At the same time, for nobody in the world, learning stops. We learn from life. We learn in the classroom. We learn at home. We learn from different experiences. So if you see very clearly, lifelong learning is extraordinarily important. The integration of science and technology, as well as with artificial intelligence and GPT is very important. We have to understand these technologies, learn them, and use them very intelligently, because technology has no ideology. It is the user that makes it a boon or a bane. For example, like the social media. Social media was at one time thought to be an extremely democratic space. But today we have realized it is also a space of information warfare. It is a space of propaganda, of creating half-truths and misinformation. And especially democratic societies like that of India are at greater threat than closed societies like China. So we, the citizens, have to be extraordinarily careful and not carried away. We have to seen that recent examples of violence triggered off even communal riots. This is not good in a democracy, because a democracy believes in free speech and expression. And India has always jealously guarded that. And hence, I would tell most of the students, technology, science and technology, yes. But the use of science and technology has to be done with a lot of ethical standards and with a lot of responsibility by the users. We also know that India not only has external threats, but internal as well. So how are we going to use this knowledge and narrative building for sustained campaigns in the public space? I think academics, students, research scholars need to keep writing. I'm not saying write on one side or the other side. Please write good articles and publish them, not only in research journals, but also in where common people read. And we also should become the opinion makers. We also need a collaborative approach, because the NEP 2020 gives huge flexibility. Like in JNU, we had the 0 semester. You can also have the 9B, meaning, and do all of you know in JNU, like universities, why are there no major alienation of students that lead them to commit suicide? We are a university that takes 3 pointers, make 4 pointers and 5 pointers and make them into 8, 9 and 10 pointers. And here we are more empathetic. We follow empathy with excellence, inclusion with integrity and innovation. We want to include every every citizen of this country, irrespective of where she or he or even the other gender comes from. It is extraordinarily important that we have empathy. Without empathy, India in 2047 would not be very successful. We also believe that women-led development. I always believe that, as the Prime Minister from the ramparts of the Red Fort in the last Independence Day speech called for Nari Shakti. And he said very clearly, unless there is women-led development, our Amrit Kal will not be fulfilled. And I think it's extraordinarily important that the Indic civilization that does not discriminate against the feminine need to be revived. And these have to be included as values in our national curriculum framework. And we would also like to look at, I would only say that we would vision for 2020, 2047 on 2023 would be systematic efforts at, for me, the most important thing is narrative change. We need to bring in the Bharatiya narratives. And this is not easy. It is difficult because we will have to understand both our Vedic literature as well as Sangam literature. Most of you know Tamil has a huge Shaiva Siddhanta, or in the south you have Advaita. Do most of you know there is no parallel in Western philosophy to Advaita or even Buddhism? Most of you should know that the classical school of Indian Buddhism has never been explored in its modernity. Fritzo Capra wrote a book, The Tao of Physics, where he says Buddhism is very close to the latest nuclear theories. So why are we not studying this? You have, Dharmakirti, or even Nagarjuna, his concept of shunyata, or even the question of detachment that you have in Advaita. And it is very important that we bring in Vaishnavism, Vishishta Advaita, or even Krishna as the most modern of all the gods. It is extremely important that scholars who are there today at many universities, colleges, or as public intellectuals, it is time that we make this narrative change, write about it scholarly, as well as in the public debate. It is extraordinarily important. Make our students and research scholars to do research on these areas. And if you see, there is a huge amount of knowledge that we can bring in. The other is filling up gaps in history. Many of our empires have not even been included. Like, for example, the Cholas, who ruled for 2000 years, or the Vijayanagar Empire, or even the Marathas. They were naval powers. Do anyone, or even Ahoms? See, I was a history student in my bachelor's from the state of Tamil Nadu, Presidency College, which in the NIRF rankings is number 3. And I never knew that the Ahoms defeated the Mughals 17 times. The way I was taught Mughal history, it was shown as though they were never defeated. So it is extraordinarily important that we read the Chalukyas, the Shatavahanas, the Hoysalas, so many kingdoms which we don't read at all. We don't even know that they existed. It is important that we know that we are not a defeated society, but a society of victors as well. And it is always important that this narrative change has to be done. In conclusion, I would like to appeal to all of us that Education 2047 would be the most important criteria on which India will be judged as a Vishwa Guru. Education meaning holistic education, and education in the unique civilizational way that we do it, we will have to do it. We will have to do it differently from the West or others, because by aping others, we are not original. It is extraordinarily important that we look into our own traditions, our own past, and reconstruct it and make it relevant for the present. I think this is the most important challenge. The NEP 2020 has given us a momentous framework within which we can do it, and an opportunity. This is also the best period for all of you to be, because this is the most transformative period of independent India's history. And I'm sure that all of you young people and people now, this is the period where huge transformations are taking place. And please stay, it is important that we as educationists, as students, as research scholars, take on this challenge and be able to write serious narratives that are accepted all over the world with authentic sources and others, and also see our universities work on these areas. This is extraordinarily important. Let me tell you that in JNU, we have named our Advanced Research Institute after the great sage and saint and founder of the Vijayanagar Empire, Vidyaranya. Vidyaranya Institute of Knowledge and Advanced Study, where we want people working on this area of the Indic narratives to come and do work. And we need to develop the Indian knowledge system in all subjects on very strong scientific research-based foundations. So finally, I would only end with the Upanishadic saying, Asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya. This should be our goal for education and the vision of it in 2047. Namaste, Jai Hind.
Namaskar, Madam.
Namaskar.
Thank you so much for that informative and a very thought-provoking speech of yours on this topic. I mean, it practically took us towards a great vision for Bharat. And it is so true of what you mentioned about the right narrative building. But ma'am, the problem today, the challenge today is that we have to begin building that narrative from the people who have already been taught distorted history. So how do we tackle this challenge in its beginning stages and then look at actually building the right narratives for the country and as a face of being a knowledge republic in the world?
Thank you. Very good question. I totally agree with you that we have a generation in the last 70 years which is absolutely rootless or alienated from many of this. I would say first is the concept of deschooling, meaning whatever we have learned as maybe the right interpretation, I won't call them facts because it can be contested. It is important that we deschool it and we have to bring in the corrective. So I think the national curriculum framework is important. And I would urge the NCERT to do this more often and continuously. Not according to me, they should have done it in 2016 rather than 2023, maybe in future. And I think all universities, like in Jawaharlal Nehru University, madam, we are introducing a lot of courses in Pali, MA in Hindu studies. We also have a 5-year integrated course in Ayurvedic biology. So we have both research as well as papers. And I think we should, another thing is we should have multiple narratives. This idea that only one narrative should dominate or be the hegemonic narrative is not a good aspect. And multiple, and I urge academicians to write more. Somehow I see that we in India don't stick out our neck when we work in the universities. And I think that is very important. We should stick our necks out, not only write popular articles, as well as research articles. And also give our research students to work on these topics. I would also urge the government that institutions like ICSSR, CSIR, DST and others should encourage people who are ready to do projects on this area. And lastly, I would say the government should increase its investment in education from 3.1% to double digits. I think if you don't invest in education, because please remember both South Korea and India, more or less very independent at the same, but South Korea invested 15% of its GDP in education. And they've gone much ahead of us than we have done. Ours somehow has not moved beyond 3.1, 3 point, around that it is. We need to, they say 6%, but still it hasn't moved to 6%. And we have to move it to 10%. And I think the best should come to teaching. So you have to make it attractive.
Absolutely, ma'am. Your points on how different narratives should be built and not just one is so relevant, especially because Bharat is a civilization of people who seek knowledge rather than followed ideas. There are so many questions pouring in because how many people are finding this talk so interesting. The one that we see now is we see that many modern private institutions push Western approach from attire to teaching to content to functioning to run their institutions, and in this way they're able to charge exorbitant amount of fees from students. Is there any way that we can make it mandatory for all institutions to expose the students to Indic knowledge and Indic approach to functioning?
Yes, we can do, but we are a democratic society. In India, nothing can be imposed. I would rather say that make Indic courses attractive. See to it that when you get faculty, insist that those who know the Indic narratives would be given a better opportunity. Then automatically students will go to those areas. Have more fellowships in these areas. Where there is money, people will immediately change. This is mine, though I'm not saying they're materialistic, but most of them, this is how narratives are built. Why is the Western narrative, attractive? Because first 70 years of our independence, we more or less imitated the Western type of education. And we imitated whatever was taught in America or in Europe. We never bothered about, whereas when we, please understand, I want to tell people that we were civilized when they were picking up stones. We had Nalanda, Takshashila, Nagarjuna, Honda, so many areas, where we were dispensing knowledge. And we also have science and technology. Now, let me tell you, in an engineering course, like, do we teach how the Brihadishvara temple is built? See, it is an engineering wonder, or the Sun Temple in Konarak. We don't teach. And today we have IITs and who are ranked very high. They build bridges. What is the life of the bridge? Best is 10 years. Buildings 5 years. You have cracks. So why are we not teaching? There is no crack either in the Brihadishvara temple or wherever we have lifted huge vimanas of 80 tons to such heights. Why are we not trying to understand what was the tech, or even the, at the Qutub Minar, you have that, the iron pillar, which doesn't rust. So there must have been some technology with which these people built. So my question is, it is just that we are lethargic. We don't want to work a little harder and do this. It is very important that we make it more attractive. Initially, I would say use incentives of giving fellowships, scholarships, only to people who work on such topics. Then I'm telling you, within next 5 to 10 years, we'll have enough, literature or enough books that are produced, which brings out the gaps that we have created in our knowledge system.
Absolutely, ma'am. And it is also true that the youth today is on its own realizing the value of learning the real history, and that's why historic and geopolitical content is quite popular among the youth today. This brings me to another question, which is, of course, national education policy is undoubtedly a visionary policy. But given that there are so many colleges that are too focused, for example, the colleges of science and commerce colleges, what would be your advice to enable multidisciplinary approach in such colleges as mentioned in NEP?
It's important that, see, you have to allow students to take some papers from other disciplines. I don't know whether if most of you know in MIT, in Harvard, international relations is a must for engineering students, because when they go abroad to work, they don't know the politics, because it is politics that if you don't know the politics of that country, you will not be able to even sell your product. So economics and all that you have to teach. So it is very important that I think government should make it mandatory that if anybody wants NAC ranking, unless they have interdisciplinary courses, they will not be given the points. You please give negative points for people who are too focused and too narrow. It is important, because I agree with you that people, there are good private institutions, but many private institutions are there more for profit. It's also an industry today all over the world, not only in India. But I want the state to still be a major player in education. Otherwise, it will be difficult for a country like India, where we have to move to several areas.
Very true, ma'am. Although the vision for 2047 is a glorious one, but the truth is that we have to start with the youth. And sad, should I say sad, the truth of the youth today is that the attention span of young people, young minds has come down to 2-minute reels. And the likelihood of them reading books and going across, lengthy content on real history is also very laborious, according to you. So how do you think this lack of attention span can be addressed? This challenge can be addressed, and how do we bring in content that is just 2 minutes, to start that inquisitiveness in the youth to begin?
Very good question, because today's students are like 2-minute noodles. But you can't be eating noodles every day. The best, let's say Mysore Pak or anything, it takes long to cook, or even a sambar or a bisi bella bath. So, so the taste and the quality varies between 2-minute noodles. So I would say, I agree with you, attention span is very less. Everybody wants marks. Everybody wants A+. Nobody is ready to get a B-. And they'd say that, so this is something that we have to bring in, that don't study for marks. Marks are not so important, but it is more important for you to understand what you have studied. Stress on creativity, meaning if a child is innovative, introduce these things into programs, which brings in flexibility. Because, if we are going to have only rote examination, like MCQs we have now, for me, you think that my day is good, my luck is good. That day I put inky, pinky, ponky, and I get the right answers without knowing anything. So I would rather say have examinations where we test the skill of the candidate, and even see that they give them more marks, not for rote learning, but rather for certain creative work they do. And I think when I used to do MA, we used to have one book as a course. We had to read the text, and all the questions would be based on whether I knew the text. You can have open book examination. One is that good. Open book examination is tougher than our other. You give a book and tell them to find the answer. So unless they've read it, you can't do it within 3 hours. This is something that we can innovate, and this is important that educators and others have to do. The NEP has given us the framework, but we are the implementers. And I think students, one thing I tell students, hard work and discipline cannot be replaced.
Very true, ma'am. This actually brings us to another question. Like you said, that the models or the way we teach has to change. So how should teachers get equipped at every level of education, say from the preschool to the university levels, for meeting the requirements of the vision that you brought forward?
So I totally agree. Teacher education is very important and it has to be continuous. As I said, finally, the best should come to teaching. In primary school, unless the teacher is able to communicate with the children will not be, enticed, or even in higher education. I think unless the teacher is a good teacher, and the teacher is continuously learning. And I think the teacher should be regular to class, on time to class, and teacher has to know his or her subject. Let me tell you, unfortunately, after COVID, this online teaching has further worsened the problem. Because you don't know whether the student is there or not. You can switch off the camera, and even the teacher switches off the camera and reads from a book. So I don't blame students for it. We need to have keep training students, teachers, and make them into better communicators. And constantly the teacher has to keep learning new things. Like, for example, even when I was studying, I didn't have no Indic narratives. But because I learned Sanskrit, I know Tamil, I could read, I could, whenever new ideas came, could refer and write. So I think all teachers need to do it. I think teachers in India have to be like the Vedic teachers, totally committed to their teaching and to their, students. It should not be taken as a profession. I think teaching is a commitment, integrity, and it's a service.
So true, ma'am. Is there any background noise? No. This brings us to that India is often
I think there's some disturbance, I think, yeah.
Yes, firecrackers. So I think I'll take some minute or so to.
Okay.
Okay. So another question is that India is generally judged for the literacy rate that we have. It is so it is true that several Indians may not be literate, but we also have come across so many people, for example, our own grandmothers who had the wisdom of life, and they were more educated than the real educated people that we consider today. So the question goes hence that can there be any mechanism in which we can identify education for what it is and not just look at literacy rate?
That's right, because when figures are given out, one thing I don't believe in these international figures. Did you see the latest democracy index has come? India has been put below Nigeria. This clearly shows that, there is a bias. So in the same way, I would say degrees are not important, because I think it is the wisdom, the knowledge. I agree with you that there are, like a farmer, he may not have gone to school, but he knows how his crops grow, how he can. So that type of knowledge is also very important. And we need to learn from even these practitioners and learners. So I would say that an open-minded learning is very important. In agricultural universities, it's important to bring in successful farmers. Or even in universities, it's very important to bring in people who practice certain concepts. So we do have such people who can come and give lectures and who can even take a course if they want to take. So I totally agree that classroom teaching is not everything. It's only 25% of the knowledge. Experiential learning is much, much more important. In Tamil, we have a saying called Padcha Muttal, educated idiot. So it can mean to nothing. I would rather say education perfect scoundrel. You think a fellow is already a 420. If he gets educated, he's a better 420. So education is a tool, the degrees, literacy, all this may be good for what to say, statistics. And let me tell you, statistics lie. That was the first thing I was taught when I came in, is the way you use those statistics and how you put it in which context. And now in this age of artificial intelligence, misinformation can be terrible. Information warfare, you know, the lot of what to say, conspiracies can be done. And especially in democratic societies, this is extraordinarily dangerous. Another thing I would say, tell India is, we should, if we are a secular state, I don't think religious schools should be permitted, despite minority rights. I think education should be a secular space, meaning an open space, not a space where you have particular ideologies being taught, which can be dangerous because I am not saying only one group is doing. Then when the majority will do the same thing, it becomes dangerous for the minorities. Secularism is not for the majority, it's for the minorities. So I basically believe that in the age of science and technology, especially artificial intelligence, chat GPT, you know, all this, we have to change the way we are looking at knowledge and the way we produce it.
Absolutely, ma'am. Your insights are touching so many people right now that there are still questions one after the other. I would like to pose this one to you. This looks interesting. What do you think is the responsibility of all stakeholders in this in the field of education? For example, say parents or other institutions that play their role in education. What should be the responsibility that they should take up in implementing the vision?
I think every citizen has a responsibility. See, it's very wrong in India. Till now we had this idea of MyBHARAT Sarkar, that government will do everything. See, citizens will have to do it. Unlike law and order. So please teach your child how to behave in the public space. See, if you give the sanskar like Jijabai gave it to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, there won't be rapes in India. There won't be stalking. So my question is, I agree that responsibility lies with everybody. Education does not begin in the school or in the university. It begins at home. What I call sanskar is the most important thing. And this comes only by, what to say, mainly at home, your surroundings. And I think every citizen has many of us, when we are on the road, you know, we don't play the role of a citizen. And silence, when you have to take a stand, is something we are failing the country. I think we must have the courage to stand up for our values, to stand up for whatever is important for us to take us into the, what to say, knowledge society, or the concept of Vishwaguru, which we had in the earlier, when the West was picking stones, we were very, very civilized. And we brought in concepts that today is even relevant in physics. And we are not able to connect it. We want the Western scholars. See, somehow in India, if some Western scholar praises our concept, then it's legitimized. If we praise it, no, everybody will then say, oh, you're communal. See, this whole attitude of the way we have developed is very, very, I think, I would say totally biased. If somebody says he belongs to a particular culture, then he's communal. If somebody else says the same thing, he's secular. See, this whole concept of, I think we need to start this at the school, college level. It's continuous, like the, NEP said. And this is lifelong learning. I think every Nagarik or citizen needs to stand up for the values that we are standing up. And the values, according to me, are very, very, important, especially the Indic and Bharatiya values.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you so much for those deep thoughts on several aspects of education. Thank you for your time. ನಿಮಗೆ ಬಹಳ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. Nandri for your time and anek aabhar. May we all be celebrating the diversity and we own up to our diversity. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaskar. Thank you.
Here's a thanks to all the audience that have been with us for the last 12 days and today. What an amazing talk it was. All of these days, all of these days and today as well. We have several more talks lined up for you, which are going to be even more or equally or even more interesting. So let us look at what all do we have lined up for tomorrow. Firstly is the student program, wherein several students from across Karnataka, across India really, are speaking on freedom fighters and concepts related to the freedom movement. I would request all the viewers to share this program with your friends and family so that the students who are speaking here are encouraged and they keep on learning more and more about Bharat. Next is the Swarajya Ratha. Swarajya Ratha has been going around across Karnataka in several villages. Today, I think it is around Gulbarga. So anybody around Gulbarga can please receive Swarajya Ratha and celebrate Bharatiyata with Bharat Mata. Also, we have an essay competition that has been organized. And the topic for it is Amrita Kaladalli Bharata Yuva Janateya Patra. In English, it would be Bharat in Amrit Kal, the role of youth. The essay can be written in either of these languages, Kannada or English. And several attractive cash prizes are to be won. So please circulate this message among your friends and family and make sure that a lot of youth are encouraged to write on these topics. And the handwritten copies have to be sent to the address as showcased on the screen today by the 25th of August. And the talk that has been arranged for tomorrow is a truly inspiring one. The title itself might as well inspire you. It is a talk on Veer Savarkar, the man who could have prevented partition. The talk is going to be by Shri Uday Mahurkar, an author and thinker, and Information Commissioner, Government of India, New Delhi. We are all waiting for this inspiring talk by Mahurkar ji, urging you all to join in great numbers for tomorrow and the other lectures and other programs as well. Thank you all for being with us and continue to support us even further. Thank you all so much. Namaskar.